Hello, are you out there? It's Mark with HFD Review. That's right. We're actually going to review some homebrew here. We have from CamunonZ, the fighter subclass, the blacksmith. And I love anything that relates to blacksmiths. Obviously, I would play a fighter dwarven blacksmith if I was going to do the subclass. And I will put a link in the description, by the way, to the Homebrewery for access to this PDF, which is done so nicely, just laid out beautifully, very professional, great artwork. But yeah, I haven't even looked at this yet. Let's just jump into it. It's quite a few pages. I know there's some feats. I think there's some special instructions on like materials you can use for blacksmithing, like silverine, mithril, dragonhide. So it actually gets a little bit into the mechanics of being a blacksmith. You could theoretically, I believe, even use some of the blacksmithing rules presented in the subclass just to run blacksmiths in your town, even if they're not PCs. So let's take a look at it. Okay, the blacksmith, just a great bit of art here, forge in the background. It's a really nice bit of art. In order to create the perfect blade, one must know how to wield it. Widely recognized through the lands as one of the most essential professions, blacksmiths are known for spending their time under the heat and choking smoke of metal shops, thus leading to many out there to think naively that they wouldn't be warriors themselves. Thanks to their knowledge of weapons and armor creation, these hardworking laborers can use nearly any implement of war to the best of its abilities, leveling powerful blows through the hardened muscles in their arms. They are not bound by their forges either. As long as there is a hammer in hand and a fire at their disposal, they can support the party by maintaining and reinforcing their weapons as well as crafting unique ones. While very few blacksmiths decide to go adventuring, those who do find their allies are more than grateful to have someone on board who can help them make the most of their equipment both in and out of battle. Yeah, and that's an interesting thing. Obviously, most people, when they go into a trade, the intention is that they're going to make a living doing that trade. But being a blacksmith would imply that you're tough, like just intellectually, physically tough, because you are breathing in choking smoke, resisting heat. You're building your body to be immensely strong from the thousands, the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of blows of an iron hammer on an iron anvil, working billows, shoveling coal, the whole deal, lifting heavy blocks of metal. What's the word for it? An ingot of metal, I think, right? I'm sure they can weigh hundreds of pounds potentially. And secondly, the logic that if you forge weapons and you forge armor, all the designs, the shapes of beaks on axes, the protective elements on armor, and the hilts of weaponry, how durable the hafts are, you're essentially going to functionally be a master of how weapons are used and how armor defends against those weapons. Whether or not you're well practiced in using those weapons, you would have that overarching knowledge of how the weapon's meant to be most lethal and how the armor's meant to be most protective. And then theoretically, through years of training, you will wield the weapons for balance at the very least, and you'll try on armor for comfort, ease of use, ease of donning and doffing it, that kind of thing, weight. So yeah, you'd have a lot of experience after several years of apprenticeship. I think it could be a little tricky with a subclass like this to play like a 16-year-old blacksmith, because how good of a blacksmith are you and how much training strength have you developed at that point, experience with the weapons, knowledge. So in my mind, it's a subclass that for fiction would be much better played with a masterful blacksmith, someone who has been doing it for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. In particular, an elf, a gnome, a dwarf could have been a blacksmith in their hometown for 100 years before going out and adventuring. So I think you can play with that a little bit. Smoke and steel. When you choose this archetype at 3rd level, you gain proficiency with Smith's tools. If you are already proficient with them, your proficiency bonus is doubled for any ability checks you make with them instead. Yeah, expertise in blacksmith tools. Absolutely. Presumably you're a blacksmith before you reach level 3, right? It's just kind of the fiction of the story here. Additionally, you can use Smith's tools to cast the Identify spell as a ritual without the need for material components, but only when targeting weapons or armor. Lovely touch, nice little extra ability, and of course the ritual is always going to take 10 minutes. So yeah, you got to spend a lot of time examining armor, but you're looking for craftsmanship quality, runes, markings, or other glyphs that are put into the material to know what special effects it might have. So it's a nice touch. Lastly, you can use Smith's tools to cast the Mending spell without the need for material components. If you have access to a forge or campfire, you may use the spell to repair breaks or tears up to 5 foot in size. Is that the standard? Is that the standard for mending anyway? I don't know off the top of my head, but it's a mending. You get the mending cantrip as a fighter, provided though that you have access to a fire and your tools, I presume, and your tools. Sorry, I just got a notification. I don't know if you guys could hear that. I could hear it. Sorry. I got a note. I got a pop up on my computer screen and my phone at the same time for Reddit, and I'm just like, I like this here. You know, the idea that you have a fighter that has a cantrip is powerful, and that has a limited identify is powerful. But I appreciate the fact that at level 3 you are saying, yeah, the identify is only going to work on weapons and armor, and it's a ritual, so it's like a tamped down version of that magical effect. And with mending, you mentioned that you have to have access to a forge or campfire, and I would say your tools, your blacksmith's tools. I would put that in there. I mean, I know you've already published this, but just the fire alone isn't enough, because presumably this fighter subclass isn't using magic per se to do the repair. They are using their tools and the flame, the fire, the heat to do it. So, yeah, I mean, you could have like a little adolescent red dragon that can breathe fire. I would say that could be your heat source, right? As long as you got your tools with it. But yeah, okay. A lot of fun there. Secrets of the Trade. Also at 3rd level, you are able to display your craft by honing the implements of those around you. If you have access to a forge or campfire, you can use Smith's tools to add, remove, or swap one of the properties listed below to any non-magical weapon. Throne? Oh my gosh. That's actually kind of cool. You could take a non-thrown weapon and make it a thrown weapon by rebalancing it. So it's either aerodynamic or it has a stable spin, right? Is it spin? Stable spin? Yeah, stable rotation. So it doesn't. Okay. Heavy cannot be added to light or finesse weapons. Okay, just a regular can be upgraded to a heavy. Sure, cool. I like that. Finesse cannot be added to a heavy or two-handed weapon. There's reasons. There's some rules mechanics you got to be a little careful with there so things don't get squirrely. But in versatile, increase the die by 1 size for damage with 2 hands cannot be added to two-handed weapons. Okay, that makes sense. This, you do have to be careful. I'm sure OP has thought their way through those, because it's tricky though. It is tricky because I think they put a pretty good amount of thought into balancing those different tags for weapons so that how they interact with feats works well. Be cautious. And as with any homebrew, if you're a DM implementing this or you're a player asking your DM to implement it, you both need to have an agreement that if things need to be modified for game balance because there is broken elements, you both agree that that is okay, that you will discuss it, you'll identify the imbalance, and you will make modifications to the homebrew to bring it into balance. I point that out because these things here could potentially have a broken aspect or two. All right. This process must be performed in an unoccupied space on a horizontal surface within 5 feet of you. It takes a total of 1 hour per weapon and can be done during a short or long rest. You can modify a number of weapons equal to double your proficiency bonus, and each of them must only bear 1 of your modifications at a time. To customize a new weapon beyond that number, you must first undo the alterations done on one of the previous items. Yeah. You don't specify that it takes time to undo the modification, I don't think, but certainly implying that you cannot stack modifications. You have to go back to the base. You can never have more than two because it matters, because you could essentially work an item theoretically, from finesse to this, but you're saying, no, you've always got to revert back because you can never have more than one modification. You have to revert back to the base before you can modify in a new way. That way you can't chain your way through the modifications one at a time, but arrive at a new weapon that's just completely preposterous. Yeah, things can get out of hand. All right, let's scroll up. Let's jump over to the next page here. Here we are, Artisan's Spark. This is at level 7. Your passion for the work of metal allows your creation to leap beyond the realm of the mundane. All right, you can now modify magic weapons or uncommon rarity or below. Each weapon you tinker with can now bear up to 2 modifications at the same time. Every new customization counts towards the maximum number of weapons you can alter. Furthermore, the following options are added to the list of properties you can install into a weapon. Ooh. Things are going to get crazy here. Things are going to start getting crazy now because you're able to mix and match. And as far as we're reading this, the modifications are permanent. I only say that because I see the chance for clever players to get some really haywire, unbalanced stuff going on. It almost would make sense that after 24 hours, after the modifications only last for a day, because they are essentially like MacGyvered on. They're not like part of the true initial form of the weapon that was designed to last for decades, that they are temporary modifications. Let's read through these, though. Again, I haven't. Shit might get crazy. Enhance. The weapon has a +1 bonus to attack and damage rolls with it. Alternatively, once per round, you can have +2 bonus to attack or damage rolls made with it. Once per round. So you're saying with a multi-attack? Yes. Because at level 7, your fighter, your ranger... Well, that would imply, though, for something like a warlock or sorcerer that only is going to have the 1 attack, it's always going to be a +2? Wait. You can have a +2 bonus to an attack or damage roll made with it. Oh. I like that. Yeah, it's relatively balanced. I mean, damage is probably a little more valuable, but you would have to make that call before you made the attack roll. You'd have to forego the +1 or +2 to your attack roll, land the attack, and then you would claim your +2 on the damage. I think I'm not going to equivocate over that. I think that's interesting. It certainly gives some versatility. If you're going up against a high AC critter, you're going to take the +2 on the attack roll and try and score any damage whatsoever. So yeah, I actually like that. There's a lot you can do with that tactically. Sharpen. Once per round, you can re-roll the weapon's damage dice and use either total. This can be done a number of times equal to double the wielder's proficiency bonus, after which this property is removed and the modification is undone. Interesting, because the sharpness wears off. You dull the weapon. I would have to say, though, that you specify sharpened can only be done on piercing or slashing, not bludgeoning. This is, yeah. And again, I know you've already published this, but yeah, I would do that. I would do that just for the I can never say the damn word. Vermicelitude. Yeah, you can't sharpen a blunted weapon. Okay. 2 times proficiency bonus, though. I get why you're doing it because it is temporary, but man, that's weird. there's nothing else I've come across in the book that's twice proficiency. One of the things we always try and think about when we're talking about homebrew on the channel, we're doing the reviews, is ease of understanding. And although it's not hard to understand 2 times proficiency, it's not easy to remember how specialized that rule is. Yeah, yeah. I also don't necessarily like that you can reroll the weapon's damage dice. I think maybe you can reroll one of the weapon's damage die. Or how about this? If you can reroll all the dice, it's just equal to the wielder's proficiency bonus number of times they can do it. I don't want to say it's overpowered, but I know there are other mechanics in the game. We're talking about 5.5 here, 2024 rules. There's quite a few things that allow you to reroll a damage die or roll 2 and then choose 1, but not reroll all the damage die. I'm not seeing that in a whole lot of places. I mean, to be fair, I haven't read everything in the book, but yeah. I think my bigger hang up on that one is the fact that it's double the wielder's proficiency bonus. It's just weird. It's just a weird rule, you know. We try and word things similar. I mean, you've done such a great job in this of making it read the verbiage is very similar to the real book, the professional official game rules. But that is weird. Okay. It's cool. I don't think it's OP, but I think it could use a little work, that sharpened feature. In particular, not using it on blunt weapons. Okay, hooked. Whenever you hit a creature with a melee attack using this weapon, you can either move them 5 feet in any direction within your range or immediately make an attempt to grapple them, no action required. Oh, that's very powerful. There's a lot of ways in the game through feats and through class mechanics. I think even through some species mechanics to move creatures around. I just don't know about the no action required grapple on a hit permanently on a melee weapon. That's a lot. I mean, I know this is coming in at level 7. Gosh, I only say that because what if you're dual wielding? You got a weapon in each hand. You're making 2 attack rolls, one attack action. You get 2 attacks and a bonus action offhand. So 3 attacks. You're going to overwhelm a creature's strength or ability to resist the grapple just by virtue of the number of hits you're landing. Like you're going to lock in the grapple no matter what is the problem. I know the grapple's coming through the attack action, but the problem is that you get many classes get multiple attacks with that action, so it's not like a 1-to-1. You easily a ranger or fighter at level 7 is barbarian is going to be getting potentially 3 grapple attempts for each attack action. So even you could be going against a hill giant with giant strength, and your dual weapon gnome rogue. Does a rogue have two attack actions? Your dual weapon gnome ranger is going to grapple that hill giant almost every turn if they bonus action attack, right? Or they're using the light weapon property to get that extra attack tacked on, 3 attacks. Despite how strong a hill giant is, it's just invariably going to get grappled. And the fact that your player, your blacksmith can do this to all the weapons in the party. You could make a lockdown party where every enemy is grappled every turn all the time. I am real quick. I'm jumping back here. At 3rd level, you're able to display by honing the implements around you. You have access to the forge campfire. You can use this to Add, remove, or swap one of the properties listed below. Takes total of 1 hour per weapon. Done to a short or long rest. You can modify the weapons. You can modify a number of weapons equal to double your proficiency bonus. So even at level 3, we're talking 4 weapons. And each of them can only bear one of your modifications at a time. There's no duration on any of these except sharpness so far. Now let's advance here to back to Artisan Spark. You can now modify magic weapons of uncommon rarity or less. Each weapon you tinker can now bear up to 2 modifications at the same time. Still only, well, now at this point we're up to 6 weapons, right? Because you're level 7. 6 weapons with 2 modifications each. This is a trick with enchantment that we run into with a lot of PC or role-playing computer games, is when you get a character that can enchant their own gear. Because it adds an entire another layer of buffs to a character. Thinking of like Echelon. I don't know if anyone ever played the Echelon isometric roguelikes. Fantastic games, by the way. I highly recommend. Find them on Steam, dirt cheap. There's 3 of them. But you don't, like, once you know Echelon, you become an alchemist, because high level alchemy allows you to enchant your gear, and you're adding like 50% defense and damage output to your character, whether you do it or not. We're talking like going into the high level. It's game breaking almost. Like when you're a max alchemist and you don't really need anything else. You just enchant all your cloak, your belt, your shield, your helmet, your boots, your main weapon, your bow. And you are like, I've got like 16 enchantments on my gear. And your character is like through the roof powerful. And I'm not trying to tear this down. I think this is fantastic. I think it sounds like a lot of fun, but I think all of this needs a timetable. I think they all need to wear off. Because right now at level 7, so you're talking tier 2 play, really sweet spot of the game, but 6 weapons within the party with 2 enchantments each all the time. Okay. Returning. If it has the thrown property, the weapon returns to your hand immediately after it is used to make a ranged attack. These are unique properties created through your smithing expertise. Each modified weapon can only have 1 unique property at a time. Oh. Whoa. Whoa. These are... Hold on. Down here? No, what? When swapping a specific property for another, you must choose from the options offered in the Secrets of the Trade features list. This means you cannot replace the finesse property with the two-handed property, for example. Let's jump back here. Secrets of the Trade list. Yeah. Interesting that you did that. There's just a simple little note there. I mean, it's good that you're drawing attention back to it. When swapping a specific property for another, you must choose from the options offered in the Secrets of the Trade featured list. But what about the Artisan Spark? And these are unique properties created through your smithing expertise. Each modified weapon can only have 1 unique property at a time. One of these properties. But up here at the top, we say each weapon you tinker can now bear up to 2 modifications at the same time. Maybe we need a bit of clarification here. And I'm not trying to be harsh. This is the point of reviewing the homebrew. I'm hearing the terms modification, and I'm hearing the term property. And that's totally fine, but I'm not clear on exactly what is what. So, for instance, maybe these are modifications weapons. And these are properties. Do you specify that? You may swap one of the properties listed below. Okay, so these are properties you can add, and you can add one property to weapon. Okay, now let's jump forward. We're looking at the level 7 Artisan Sparks. These are modifications. See what I'm saying? I'm maybe we're getting a little, but see, then the following options are added to the list of properties. Okay, so the properties from before, are they still modifications or properties? I'm only saying that because these two down here, this line in this box, I feel like shouldn't be tacked on at the end of this. At the end of these two sections, your level 3 properties and your level 7 modifications. You've added these here. So this is saying these are unique properties which created through your smithing, which you create through okay. Each modified weapon, switching between properties and modifications here, the terminology just keeps tick, 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 can only have one unique property. But you specifically say they can now have 2 modifications. So if these are modifications, the other things are properties, you need to say this is a list of modifications, this is a list of properties, and then you can have special rules. But this belongs at the top, not at the end. And then this here, when swapping a specific property for another, you must choose from the options offered in the Secrets of the Trade features list back on page 1. That means you cannot replace the finesse property with the two-handed property, for example. Yeah, that was it, and I get that, because that's what I was saying about the chaining, that you could take a weapon and bit by bit move it through to get to, you could do it, link them together to make a weapon completely different after several transformations. And I was specifying that no, you've always got to go back to the base weapon before you add another property. You can't chain them together. That's not clear. I think what you're saying is good and important to specify this, but clarity is one of our ease of understanding. Clarity, it is not clear. I'm getting jumbled on terminology. I'm getting jumbled on the placement of these rules relative to other rules, and I'm getting jumbled on contradictions, such as can only have one unique property, when up here it says they can now bear up to 2 modifications. So it needs clarification. That's all. Yeah, that's why we review. It needs clarification. It is not clear. I'm not saying you're not right. Maybe you have worded it, if I lawyered it up and really thought about it a lot, what you've said is completely consistent, but I shouldn't have to think about it that hard. Okay? But I'm hoping you can edit the PDF and republish. I hope I'm helping you out with that to make a more polished, more well-balanced, enjoyable product. Okay. Expanded arms. At 10th level, your metallurgy skills improve even further, letting you incorporate inventive new designs in your work. You are now able to craft and modify magical weapons with the rarity of rare or below. In addition, the following properties become available for you to add, remove, or swap when customizing a weapon. By the way, again, all this list of stuff I think would be excellent to be on the menu of a skilled blacksmith. And for a small town, you could have a blacksmith that only has access to up to the artisan spark. But in a large city, you can find an expert blacksmith who now can access features up to the expanded arms. So I really think this is a tool you could use to provide some really cool features from an actual NPC blacksmith in the game. So I think that's like dual purpose for the subclass. So yeah, let's see, what do we got here? Rare or below. In addition, the following properties become available for you to add, remove, swap. Okay, so light cannot be added to a heavy weapon, and reach can only be added to two-handed or versatile weapons. Okay. Hopefully nothing's too broken there. It'll take gameplay. Furthermore, the following options are added to the list of unique properties you can instill into a weapon. Oh, and just as a, I would add a little pop-up box like this kind of box here, which is like a note on stuff saying if you want to offer these services in a blacksmith, that they are a quarter the cost of the original weapon, half the cost, or the full cost of the real weapon, depending on the level of blacksmith it requires to do the modification. So, like, maybe these expanded arms things would cost the full cost of the original mundane weapon, like base cost for the weapon. So it's giving your players something to spend money on if they do want to do these swap outs in a town with an NPC blacksmith. So it's just like, oh, that's 15 gold, or that's 50 gold, or that's 200 gold. Yeah, I think that'd be cool. Furthermore, the following options are added to the list of unique properties you can install in a weapon. Okay, jagged. The weapon scores when the weapon scores a critical hit on a roll of a 19 or 20. Very cool. That is nice. That is very powerful. That would be like a twice weapon cost. Yeah, that's a really powerful mod. I'm not saying you can't do it, but there should be so. Wow, you got to be careful with this stuff because now you are at wait, how many weapons did you say 2 times? 2 times. Hold on, I'm so sorry. I hate forgetting this. How many weapons can you do this on? During you can modify number of weapons equal to double your proficiency modifier. So we're up to 8 weapons at level 10. It means every weapon in your party can have jagged, and then one other at this point. You've got 4 or 5 players. I almost feel like it's too many of the weapons. Double proficiency. Mm-mm. Right, I'm trying to think of like the artisan. I've never played an artisan, but I know they are limited on how many magical artificer class. You guys know what I'm talking about. You put 2 of these mods on a weapon, you've basically made a magical weapon. And you're saying that you can make double times your proficiency, this many magical weapons, permanent. Can an artificer make 10 magical permanent items? I don't know shit about artificers because it's never been like an official thing. I've never been interested in playing one. Is this comparable to that? I'm asking out there to people who know more than I do about the artificer. Or is this unbalanced? Am I wrong about balance? We've talked about clarity, ease of understanding. Balance is one of the other major pillars we work on when we're talking about our homebrew reviews. Because I would put jagged on every weapon in the party. and then the players decide what other secondary modifier they would like. And in particular, you're specifying that you can modify weapons double your proficiency as maybe a way to tamp this down a little bit on the power balance, is to say you may do 2 times your proficiency modifications. So instead of 10 weapons with 2 mods, you just get 10 mods. Oversized can only be added to heavy weapons. If your attack roll with the weapon exceeds the target's AC by 3 or more, they are immediately knocked prone. Creatures of a size of huge or greater are immune to this property. Okay, kind of cool. Reinforced. The weapon's damage die increases by 1 size, so a D8 becomes a D10, a D12, a 10 becomes a D12, etc. If the weapon's damage die is D12, this property changes to a 2D6. If it's a 2D6, this property changes to a 3D4. Ooh. Okay. Cleaving. Yeah, they're all good. You would want all of these. And are you able to put these on yeah, you can put this on weapons that are already magical. You got a +1 magical, you got a +1 longsword that's jagged and reinforced. It's really strong. Okay. Okay. Cleaving. Whenever you hit a prone creature with a melee attack using this weapon, it deals an additional 2d6 damage. If your attack scores a critical hit, the target also gains 1 level of exhaustion. That's interesting. That's interesting. It's powerful, and it's not that hard to knock creatures prone in the game. It's an interesting mechanic. I don't really know how to balance that because I don't know that I've seen that anywhere else. Is that a feature that fighters get? Something like that? I didn't see anything like that in any of the feats in the new book. None of the weapons give that option, so this seems quite original. To be fair, that seems very. It's unprecedented to me, the idea of cleaving, extra damage against a prone target specifically, and if it's a critical hit, it gains exhaustion. That's cool. I think some of the time that'll work. Obviously, some creatures are immune to the prone condition, but it's a lot of extra damage if you can knock someone prone. Sure. Let's switch over to the next page here. All right, flawless smelting. Hold on. Life works a warrior the same way a blacksmith does their weapon. It beats you down until you are tempered and sharp enough to slice through any opposition. Okay, nice little flavor text there. So we have flawless smelting. At 15th level, your skill at the forge reach a new measure of perfection. You can now craft and modify magical weapons with the rarity of very rare or below. Additionally, each weapon you tinker can now bear up to 3 modifications at the same time, and 2 of those may be from the list of unique properties. Okay. And so you are very specifically saying that modifications and properties are different now. But you really gotta you gotta punch that out in bold and say these are mods, these are properties, these are mods, these are properties. Because even just having read through all this in the last 15 minutes here, it is not in any way clear to me which ones are the mods and which ones are the properties. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, like bold header, properties list, modifications list. Okay. Because I guarantee your players will be like, wait, is the finesse thing, is that one of the that's a weapon property? Yeah, that's from the weapons property list. The modifications of these other things. Okay. But it is saying you can now craft and modify magical weapons. The crafting part's new, right? Hold on, let's jump back here. Your metallurgy skills improve even further, letting you incorporate inventive designs. You are now able to craft and modify magical weapons. Okay. I realize I wasn't quite understanding that. I thought this was all modify. You can now modify. So Artisan Spark and Secrets of the Trade are modify. Okay, and then when we hit to Expanded Arms, you may craft and modify. I only bring that up because you're essentially crafting magical weapons with these interesting properties and modifications. You're making magic weapons, and that's cool. I like that. And you can only have so many made at a time, sure. But you can also take an existing magical weapon, again, the example of the +1 longsword, and then modify it, making a making a really powerful weapon with multiple magical features. You're leaning into some extremely strong stuff here. And I think there are campaigns that a DM might run where this is super appropriate, where the whole party is going to be stacked with epic level weapons, each one with 3 or 4 powerful additional features, just in one piece of gear, and everyone in the party has 1 or 2 of those, right? Um, it's a super powerful build. Now, to be fair, let me think about this. I want to be fair to you, OP, for creating this homebrew. Up to this point, the fighter in question, the blacksmith fighter, has gotten no other special abilities outside of the ability to identify and mend. Which is interesting because this is very much a support character. And a fighter's a fighter. Fighter's tough, just with their basic fighter capabilities. But you are not giving this subclass any extra fighter capabilities. But what it does do is it gives the entire party powerful magic weapons. Powerful magic weapons. Is that a worthy, trade-off? It's a fascinating trade-off. I think the entire party having a wide assortment of powerful magical weapons is more powerful than some extra subclass features a normal character would get. So I think it's overpowered in that sense, just from what I've seen so far. Secondly, though, although I at the very beginning was saying like I would love to play a dwarf fighter blacksmith, like I would want to play this, that player is sacrificing the capabilities of their character. Their character will not be comparable to the other characters. And I don't mean like they're not as tanky or they don't do as much DPS. I mean like they literally will just be functionally will have less of a copious amount of abilities as the other characters in the party. They just don't have very many abilities. I don't know that there are that many players that would want to play that. But again, I've never done the Artificer, and I get the feeling that people that play Artificer, love being able to make those cool magical items and hand them out to their friends and gear them up that way. So there might be a section of people who really are into this, potentially. All right, let's keep going. We're talking about 3 modifications at the same time, and two of those maybe from the list of unique properties. So you're still maxed at 3 total changes to any weapon. But again, if it's a magic weapon that already has special things, this is on top of that. Lastly, weapons crafted or altered by you do not rust, pit, fray at the edges, or otherwise show signs of aging. If magical in nature and holding at least 2 modifications, they also have resistance to all damage. Well, that's cool. I do like that. That is really fun. It's a magical weapon. It's going to last for 1,000 years. I love it. And there we go. Master Forger. At 18th level, your handiwork gives birth to objects of unparalleled majesty. You could, and to be fair, at flawless smelting and above, you're playing at tier 4, extremely high level play. So things can get crazy strong at that point. I get it. I get it. You can now craft and modify magic weapons with a rarity of legendary or below. The weapons crafted or altered by you cannot be destroyed by conventional means, instead becoming unusable when reduced to 0 hit points. Once a weapon is brought to this state, you must spend a total of 8 hours restoring it, which can be done during a long rest. Yeah, like reforging the shards of Narsil, right? Aragorn's shattered weapon. In addition, the following options are added to the list of unique properties you can instill into a weapon. So the following options. The following properties are added to the list of properties. Modifiers, properties, options. It's too many words. If certain things fall into certain categories and have certain specialized rules for just them, you've got to be extremely clear on the terminology. Okay. Options of properties is what you're saying. It's not clear enough. Nimble. Whenever a creature provokes an opportunity attack from you, this weapon allows you to make an attack against it without expending your reaction. Whoa. With 18th level plus. Okay. That's strong. It's really powerful. That's really powerful. Whenever a creature provokes an opportunity attack from you, this weapon allows you to make an attack against it without expending your reaction. You may only do this once per round. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I get, for especially at this level, many classes will have something they're going to want to do with their reaction that is better than making an attack of opportunity, but you can't allow them to use nimbleness more than once. It's too strong, especially considering at this level, many characters will have weapons that can knock prone, can auto grapple on a hit, and you're saying 3 enemies could walk away from your character and they could get this non-reaction attack of opportunity on all 3 of them and then still take the reaction. It's too powerful because of the mods that are going to be on weapons at this point. I think nimble is fine, but in my opinion, you should only be able to use the nimble option property once per round. Yeah. It refreshes at the start of the player's next turn. Specialized. When you add this property, choose one creature type other than humanoid. So let's roll that up a little bit. Other than humanoid, attack rolls made with this weapon attack rolls with this weapon are made with advantage against creatures of the chosen type. I think that's kind of cool. Yeah, I think that's awesome. This doesn't apply if the target has legendary actions or the DM decides they are too important for this to work. It's like, hey, man, if your DM's going to have to reject you, they're going to reject you. I guess it's fun because I like the wording, because anytime you're throwing homebrew out there, you got to be like, yeah, man, make sure this works with your DM. However, a hammer of giant slaying works against any giant, even the giant god it's going to work against. So I think it's clever, and I admire you for saying it. But honestly, it should just a sword of dragon slaying should work against Tiamat. There should be no exception. It almost makes it. It's like werewolves are allergic to silver, except for the Lord of the Werewolves. Silver doesn't bother him. It's like, no. He's the most bothered by silvered weapons. He's the most werewolf. So you gotta. It's clever because it's original. I've never seen anyone state it that way, so it's like I admire your originality, but the most of something is the most vulnerable to its weaknesses. The master lord vampire can least of any vampire cross the threshold without being invited in. Is the most allergic to garlic. They're the most vampire. Maybe that's just me. Maybe to be fair, maybe that's me, because I think there are some fiction, stories out there where the king or the lord or the god of whatever does have special immunities to. So it may just be me. But for me, when I think of storytelling, I want to lean into the fae, into the fantasy, into the mythos, where a witch's teeth are iron. They don't have, their toes are squared at the front. Their feet are squared, and they don't have toes, right? Like a leprechaun does have a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. But that is just, I think of The Last Unicorn, Peter S. Beagle's novel, The Last Unicorn. And they also made a wonderful animated movie. That movie is the most fantasy real. It's this bizarre blend of like of real in-depth humanity and deep fantasy of any novel I've ever read. I cannot recommend it enough. If you do not know The Last Unicorn, read the book. It will it'll have a big impact on your role play. I can tell you that. But I get it. I get that there's probably some king vampire out there that in fact is so powerful garlic doesn't bother him. I guess it's not my jam, but I'll let it go with that. I'll let it go with that. Shattering can only be added to weapons with the two-handed or versatile properties. Whenever you hit a creature with a weapon, the target and all creatures within 5 feet of them must make a strength saving throw. DC 8 plus your strength modifier plus your proficiency bonus. On a failed save, a target is either knocked prone or pushed 10 feet away from you, your choice. Yeah, that's interesting. All creatures. The target and all creatures within 5 feet of them must. Okay, that's what shattering is. I was just thinking of like level 18. I'm like, there's a lot of ways to knock creatures prone or knock them back at level 18, but it's all. So you literally can have your barbarian swinging a maul of shattering, and it knocks back 3 enemies at once. That's pretty cool. I really like that, and seems pretty original. I don't think I've come across that mechanic anywhere else in the book so far. So good on you. A lot of originality in this, I must say. So I really appreciate that. Linked cannot be added to non-magical weapons. Okay. You are tuned with this to this weapon. You cannot be disarmed of it unless you're incapacitated. As long as it resides on the same plane of existence, you can summon this weapon as a bonus action on your turn, causing it to teleport instantly to your hand. Alternately, if you're with 100 feet of it, you may use your action to teleport yourself over to where it is instead. This can be done a number of times per long rest equals your proficiency bonus. Yeah, that's cool. And at level 18, completely appropriate. So very nice. And you could get up to some really fun shenanigans. Definitely a great avenue for creative role play where you part ways with your weapon to get it smuggled into a place so that you can then teleport to infiltrate or escape. Yeah, nicely done. I actually really like that. Got a few more pages here. This is long. We're almost at an hour. I don't know if I'm going to cover all of this here, folks. We might just glance over the last of it. Hardened fighting style, or fighting style hardened swing. When you reach 4th level, this new fighting style option becomes available. Okay. Not sure why this would be sitting here and not back at the beginning of this between level 3 and level 7 options. Just saying. Let's move forward here. This I had glanced at, but I see here a lot of supplementary options. I'm not going to read all. I think we are going to wrap this up. There are several good pages left, and I would encourage you to go find this PDF yourself. Again, I will have links in the description, and try and support OP. Download their PDF. But I see here we have material properties. Cold iron, yeah, for the Fae. Ignium, adamantine, stormfrax, true ice, deep crystal, silvered weapons. Over here we have armor mods, because up to this point we've only been talking about weapon modifications. I see fortified, spiked, modular, augmented, shield properties. Let's jump forward. And we have materials here: silvered, mithril, adamantine, skyber, amber, deep crystal, dragonhide, flail, snail, shell. I was going to say shale. Flail, snail, shell. Flail, snail, shell, my friends. And we have more blurbs back here. Yeah, I'll let you guys dig into the rest of this on your own. Additional feats, Sundering Strikes. We've got some credits here. Artwork, Mariah Chiara Chitati. Character, Will O'Brien. Second page. Yeah. Great artists. It's really cool. You giving them credit there. I mean, truly professional art. This is fantastic. Watercolors, design, original brews, and portable forge. A little item back here, even. Yeah, portable forge. Get you get your big beefy guy to carry it around for you. Yeah, the strongest guy in your party gets to carry the forge. So all in all, I think your layout for this is fantastic. It's extremely appealing to the eye. It's extremely professional. You put a lot of work into it, without a doubt. I think that's an A+. I think for clarity, you're sitting at a B letter grade. It's not horribly confusing. I mean, I've read some stuff where you're just like, oh my gosh, there's so many new mechanics you've added. You know, in particular for entire like whole classes, which I try not to cover because they get so complex. But I mentioned a couple things for clarity that need sorting. Some of it is just like, oh, you need to specify this. Other things are like your mixing terms. So we talked about that. But it's a B. It could use improvement. And I think you can do it without I don't think it has anything to do with game balance. So I think it's just a matter of like you put a couple words or headers in the right places. I think you clear up the clarity, and you can move that up to a letter grade quite easily, I'd presume. But balance, I don't think you're sitting well on balance. I think I don't want to give a letter grade to it, but you're way overpowered. And as we mentioned, because the subclass does not give the character any extra special abilities, it does pull back on the OP-ness, but it's still OP. You're giving massive ups to the entire party, and it only gets worse. Excuse me. It only gets worse the larger the party is. you're in a 3-character party. Everyone's running around with 3 or 4 of your weapons, but they can only use 1 or 2 of them at a time. So they can only bring so much power to bear. But if you're playing in a 6-character party, oh my gosh, you're adding so much firepower to the fray. I think you got to take some of those double proficiencies and pull them back to single proficiencies. Yeah. And it's tough because I realize what you're doing is you're scaling up. Here's your 3rd level, 7th, 10th, 15th, 18th, right? You have to 1 up every time. But it gets out of control. And I get it, the 18th level, it's going to be crazy powerful, but in between, I really think it gets out of hand at the 10th levels where it's just like, I think stuff's going to get broken. So in that case, I don't think it's balanced. Probably needs a bit of rework. I foresee this being a huge hassle for a DM to handle. Yeah. Fun to play. That's another thing we rate. Is it fun? Because with any game, the number one rule of any game is it needs to be fun. So you're making a game mechanic. I don't know. I'm also not convinced on that. I think maybe it's a C. Because ultimately, for as cool as this is for the entire party, I don't know how engaging this will be for the player that plays the character, to be quite honest. Because this all happens in downtime during short and long rests. All the mechanics you've mentioned, although cool as heck, aren't mechanics that the character can roleplay. They can barely bring them to bear in combat. I mean, you have a magical weapon now. I mean, functionally what you're doing, that's cool, but it's not roleplay. There's not a, I mean, I guess the one place where it comes in is tactically. If you know what the battle coming up is, you could have everyone put in the request for and make plans and all that. So I think there's a bit of that there. But it's like when you're planning a heist, when you're doing a role playing game, right? The role playing game is not about bank heists, but you're going to have a one little story arc for a couple of sessions where you do a heist. You pull off, like, think of the D&D movie, right? The modern one where they're gonna rob the carriage. But that's not what the whole level 1 through level 18 character arc, campaign over the course of a year real time is about. Is not about them before every battle planning out how to remodify every weapon to give them the biggest advantage. It would get old, and it's not believable because they won't have foreknowledge of all the battles coming up. I think conceptually, it's amazing. I think conceptually, it's amazing. I mean, I think about having if you were playing a computer role playing game by yourself, and you had a party, you're going to make a party that you made and you controlled all of them. You would want to have one of your characters be a blacksmith because it would benefit the whole party that you control, but you still get to play everyone, so you're not missing out on anything by having one of your 4 characters in the party being the blacksmith that has less roleplay potential. But this character does have less roleplay potential. Mechanically, I mean, obviously you have a good player that they can role play a baker, right? It's like, I make bread and I'm a great role player and I'm having a great time with it. So I don't want to say it's impossible, but there's not a lot for a character to do mechanically in session with this. So I'm gonna let it go with that. That's long enough. I think you should take a lot of the mechanics you've worked up here, this list, this menu, and I would just straight up make a blacksmith NPC document for things that blacksmiths can do for your NPC blacksmiths you'll find in villages, towns, and cities have this menu depending on the size of the town and the skill level of the blacksmith, and these are the price costs for these special abilities. I think that is a tool, a PDF that DMs would readily be able to take with a little bit of modification review and put in their games right now and would really like it. And I think all the players at the table would really like being able to use the super creative modifications you come up with for 200 gold, 500 gold, a griffin's feather and 100 gold, and a green emerald, and whatever those costs are, you make that menu, and I think your players will all get to enjoy it, but none of them would get pigeonholed into being the blacksmith. So I think there's a document in here that maybe isn't a subclass. And then for anyone who loves playing artificers and is seeing this and going, yeah, this is as good as any artificer, I love it, then that's just my lack of knowledge of artificers and the fact that it doesn't appeal to me, and then it's just completely my opinion. I could be completely wrong for the people who this does really appeal to, and they're like, I want this. That's it. Thank you so much for posting to r/homebrew fever dreams. If anyone else has their content, I hope no one feels bad. I mean, realize the point of doing the review is to be like, yeah, you should change this, and being honest in talking about clarity, balance, fun, right? Those are all the things that matter with homebrew. Because a lot of times when we make homebrew, there's not a real opportunity to do much play testing, if at all. So us discussing it as homebrewers is the way to sharpen the product and make a better homebrew creation to share with other role players and homebrewers. Okay. If you watched, thank you. Take care.